What up, YouTubers? Sunny Stiver here. Welcome back to the channel. Special shout out. I have 2 new subscribers from last week. Shout out. Thanks for the support. This is the second time I'm filming this. The first time it wound up way too long. And this is really important, I think. I want to talk about today about brain core neurofeedback. Okay, so, and I've struggled deciding whether or not to share my experience first or the technical information. I'll leave my story portion of it for the end. The important part, guys, is the technical information. And if you're like me, right, if you found this video, if you're like me at all, if you're on a mission trying to heal yourself, you're standing on your head, shoving BBs up your nose, researching stuff, doing all kinds of crazy stuff, and not a lot of help, right, from traditional Western medicine, researching and all the stuff that we do. This is something that you might check into stacking on top of. And here's why. I'm going to give you the technical information about this first. I'm going to read this to you. This is from, my apologies, wasn't paying attention where the phone was. This is from Harvard Health Publishing. And I'll have some links down below for you guys. You can go look at it for yourself. Biofeedback tries to teach you to control your autonomic bodily functions such as heart rate, muscle tension, breathing, perspiration, skin temperature, blood pressure, and even brain waves. By learning to control these functions, you may be able to improve your medical conditions, relieving chronic pain, reduce stress, or improve your physical and mental performance, sometimes called peak performance training, right? So this is a technology that high performance athletes, high performer mental people, I mean, it's a technique, right, that we can apply. During biofeedback training, sensors are attached to the body that detect the change in your pulse, skin temperature, muscle tone, brainwave patterns, or some other physiological function. These changes trigger a signal, a sound, a flashing light, a change in patterns on a video screen, which tells the physiological change has occurred. Gradually, with the help of a biofeedback therapist, you can learn to alter these signals and control your body's autonomic bodily functions. Okay, if you're struggling with adrenal fatigue or your circadian rhythm's all fucked up and you already know about your autonomic nervous system, your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system, right? Your parasympathetic is your rest and digest, and your sympathetic is your fight or flight. And if you have adrenal fatigue, chances are pretty good you got stuck in fight or flight probably your whole life until your body gave out, or you wore yourself out. But here's why this is important. So I'm going to read this. I had this done, this brain mapping done. But this is, I'm going to read this outlet is from my actual doctor who did it. Neurofeedback is a method of training brain waves to alter the structure and function of the brain to overcome certain symptoms. The concept is based on a neurological model known as neuroplasticity, and I've talked about that in other videos. Research has proved that when we learn something, the brain alters its structure and function. Through repetition, the brain becomes more efficient in its ability to retain what is repeated. Neurofeedback is a training method that teaches the brain how to produce more normalized brain patterns by creating new neuroplastic connections in the brain. As brain waves normalize, the client's brain is better able to regulate itself, and many of the symptoms that the client has experienced begin to diminish or go away. During neurofeedback, individuals are connected to a computer using non-invasive painless sensors. The computer reads their brain waves, and when brain waves appear properly ordered, it feeds back that information to the client. This feedback appears in the form of a game, movie, or sound that tells them that their brains are ordered correctly. For example, if the brain waves are moving in a more ordered direction, then the picture on the monitor gets brighter. If the brain pattern moves away from an orderly pattern, the screen gets darker. This exercise provides a built-in incentive for the brain to organize itself more orderly, in a more orderly fashion. It has a natural drive to want to see the movie clearly and brightly. This form of learning is known as operant conditioning. And just like learning to ride a bicycle, the new brainwave pattern becomes a permanent part of our behavior. Follow-up studies of neurofeedback show that the effects can continue for up to 30 years. So this is like a one and done thing. Okay, one being a protocol, not one session, right? So 20 to 40 sessions is a typical protocol for a particular condition. And I want to read through some of the things that's been used to treat chronic pain, digestive disorders, including constipation, incontinence, high blood pressure, abnormal heart rhythms, addiction, including alcohol, epilepsy, paralysis, and certain movement disorders, spinal cord injury, sleep disorders, premenstrual symptoms, PMS, bedwetting, attention to ADD, panic disorders, anxiety disorders. Pretty amazing stuff, right? So it was developed, right? Dates back to 1908. 1908 at Harvard University. Dude named Edmund Jacobson. And 20s and 30s, came around big in the 60s. NASA uses it, by the way. So, what happens? What they do is they put it, it's an EKG for your brain. And your brain mapping, the initial brain mapping. 2 parts. You go through like a 300, maybe more than 300, I think 300, that's a lot of questions, that you have to answer, survey questions about how you interact with the world, physiologically, your body. It asks you just a ton of questions about, if this happens, this is how you handle this is how you handle that, la 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 la. Excuse me. And then they put this cap on your head with all of these sensors, and they put you through this test, this mapping. And this mapping is very uncomfortable to get a baseline of where you are at. And when I say uncomfortable, it's because you have to sit still, and you have literally physically sit still. And in order for this machine to get a correct reading on that particular area of your brain, something has to happen for 60 seconds. Okay, so if your brain is, that can take 60 seconds or it can take 3 minutes. And there's a series of 12 that you have to go through, 6 with your eyes closed, 6 with your eyes open. And it's really taxing. You leave, I left there feeling like somebody had just scrambled my brain. I had a headache, and the next day I had a headache, and it was unnerving. Like we all were just walking around with anxiety at some level anyway, right? But, guys, I gotta tell you, nailed it. And our brain waves, so we have 4 separate brain waves, right? There's theta, delta, alpha, and beta. Now, if those brainwave patterns are not functioning in a way at their optimum, right? So as biohackers, and if you're trying to heal yourself and you're winging your way through it, you're a biohacker. You just didn't know that. That's exactly what you are. You have a new label. You're a biohacker. Because you're literally trying to biohack your way back into health. And if you're like me, you're winging it most of the time. Side note, digress here for a second. Had a phone consult with a brand new endocrinologist. Adrenal fatigue doesn't exist. Okay, thanks. Have a nice day. That's how that conversation went. I'll do a video later on that. That's how the yesterday's got too long. Okay, so I'm going to read. Guys, this is so bloody important. I don't know if I should read it to you or just post it underneath. I don't know. It's important. It's so important. Okay, I'm going to read you 4 paragraphs. It's important. So just hang with me and listen. When we have alpha dysregulation, most individuals begin to develop progressive, more negative moods and irritability when they are anxious and fearful for sustained periods of time, and then they begin shifting into more inhibited and avoidant behaviors. This fearfulness and irritability translates into passive aggressive behavior, angry outbursts, sense of powerlessness to correct situations that generate feelings of being victimized or unjustly used. Self-deprecation in the form of negative self-talk and negative expectations regarding performance in social situations is common. In the worst forms, severe clinical depression emerge, including social isolation, suicidal ideation, total loss of motivation, and episodes of self-inflicted pain or self-harm. I have elements of all of that in my story. Beta dysregulation. Individuals displaying The primary factors of this frequency contribute to this dimension: fast, dominant frequency beta and excessive hypersynth features hypocoherence. Features typically associated with this dimension include excessive worry, hypervigilance, discomfort with transition or changes, excessive rationalization, hypermentation, restlessness, agitation, diminished emotional self-awareness. Individuals may often emotionally feel numb, disconnected, and in extreme forms, derealization, disassociation from their bodies, and panic attacks or tics. That's your beta. Okay, now in delta and theta dysregulation, when focal abnormalities in these frequencies occur, it may indicate lesions in the gray or white matter due to a physical trauma such as DBI or stroke. Recent findings suggest that severe emotional trauma and hypersensitivity to food and allergens can enhance diffuse abnormalities in these frequencies as range. Frontal slowing in particular can result in impulsive behaviors that tend to manifest physically in children and more socially and emotionally in adults. This often results in socially inappropriate behavior and hyperactivity. Other features related to this condition include excessive speech and emotionality. Okay, guys. So, and the reason this is so important, stacking is so important, right? We can do everything right dietarily. I mean, and special shout out to my group, one of my groups. Love my Facebook groups. Adrenal Fatigue, Holistic Healing and Recovery Support. Special shout out to you guys if you find this video. Because, man, we can do it all right. But if our brain waves are not functioning properly or at their optimum level, we can still get caught up. Now, neuroplasticity, and I talked about this in a previous video. I talked about, all of the things that we do to heal our bodies. We also know, right, especially if you're part of my group, we also know that you can't separate our brain from our body. We know that, right? Stress tears our body up. Where's stress come from? It's all mental. It's how we interact. You can't separate the two. Please stop trying, people. Not you people, doctors. Healthcare professionals aren't really healthcare professionals in the United States. They're symptom managers is all they really are. You might luck out every once in a while, just like I did with my primary care physician, who's a DO. Lucked out with her. But the oncologist that, adrenal fatigue's not real. Okay, have a nice day. We do so much for ourselves, right? This is really important. If you can find access, if you can afford it. So there comes a point in time where you run out of road on what you can do for free. And if you're like me on a mission to bounce up off of disability and back out into the workforce, that can get discouraging, right? I'm going to do another video on staying on the mental game, but this treatment, this mapping, and then the subsequent treatment is going to run me just north of probably about $1,200. I think we did the math. And I'm excited because it's a one and done, right? And so here's I'm gonna read. I'll read you my character defects, my shortcomings, where I get stuck. High magnitude posterior alpha is associated with perseverance. Well, that's good news, right? Nothing like a bulldog with a bone. Elevated posterior beta is associated with negative rumination. I'll come back to that one. Low posterior theta is associated with diminished short-term and sequential memory efficiency. Wow, was that an eye-opener? I was like, why am I not? I mean, I've lost entire chunks of my story that I have people come tell me about in recovery. Like, I was not a blackout drinker until, for almost 20 years of my recovery, I never had a blackout. Because I got sober so young, I never had that experience. But in my recovery, clean and sober, I will lose like entire conversations I've had with people, and they'll say, "Don't you remember when you shared this?" And I did a lot of public speaking, just because that was the only way I could share my experience, strength, and hope. Going one-on-one with people, not my strong suit, but I would lose stuff, and I still do, and that explains why, right? Higher low posterior beta coherence is associated with sensory integration difficulty. What that translates to is my sensory input and how I receive the world. Guess what, guys? If you got adrenal fatigue, if your cortisol and you're all jacked up, you got a problem with how you're perceiving your orbit. I also have a problem, and it gets more specific, but I have, from my MS, I have lesions, scar tissue on my brain. And so it's like, oh, but I can train around that. But actually I've healed a few of my lesions. And the last one was high temporal delta magnitude is associated with hyperglycemia. The high amplitude alpha combined with slow alpha dominant frequency and alpha asymmetric suggest hyperthyroid conditions related to inflammatory processes in the intestinal tract. This usually includes symptoms of depression and insomnia. So, guys, the reason I'm like so excited about this is because if you haven't succeeded 100% where you want to be, this is something you can stack. You can add this to it and go find out and go, oh, well, crap, no wonder, right? And you've seen me talk about, and if you find me on Facebook, you see Dr. Amen stuff come through my feed all the time. Dr. Amen has the SPECT scan. That's the nuclear brain scan that gives you the map of blood flow and activity, which is, this is like the redneck budget version data. It's generic, it's generalized, but it's specific enough, and it's in the budget right now until I can get to the $2,700 test with the SPECT scan. But I wanted to share that with you guys. And especially in my adrenal fatigue group, man, we work so hard and it feels like an uphill battle, because not only are we at war trying to figure out what's going on with this suit we're trying to make peace with, that we're walking around, first we got to get off the stress of being at war with our own physical body and go, okay, wait. Then we got to go educate ourselves, because let's face it, most of us are getting most of our information out of the group. And then we go find, somebody will post about this doctor or this protocol, or let's face it, we are self-educated. We are the badasses, right? And I'm gonna do a video here. These things just wind up way too long. Stack it, man. If you're feeling discouraged, take emotional, mental comfort. And if you're a badass, right? You're still on 2 feet. Maybe you're not even on 2 feet. Maybe you're stuck in bed, man. There were months, week after week after week, where the most success I had in any given day was taking a shower and running my Dyson vacuum through a 2,000 square foot house. That was it. That was the extent of my success on the day. It was like I had got nothing else. I was stuck, man. I was strung. But we had a starting point. We had that medical crisis. Cancer came, yes. Thank you. So I could get those flaming breast implants the hell out of my body. That's a whole different story. But if you made it to the end, just know you're a badass. If you're one of my kids, you already know you're a badass. If you're one of my grandkids, you don't know it yet, but you're amazing. And it's tough. This is just one of many, many tools, but here's why I love it. It's technical. It's a hard discipline like massage, like acupuncture. It's something you can physically go do. It's proficient. And if you know anything about me at all, I am all in, all about proficiency number 1. Give me a problem and my mind's that's where the rumination comes in. Oh, by the way, rumination means a deep or considerate thought about something. The act of chewing the cud, in other words, mulling things over in my mind over and over and over. And here's what happens though. As a project manager, my mind will work it, and it will get it down to the lowest common denominator of steps to achieve it and cost to get it done. Yeah, that's just part of what my DNA, right? I come from a family of engineers and blah, blah, blah. So rumination isn't a bad thing. Unless it's negative, then that's all bad. And that's not a rabbit hole you want to be in. So just know this report can give you so much insight that you check it out. I'm going to have some links below. I'm approaching 30 minutes on just one subject, which is why we're doing more than one video today. Still getting over that chest, man. I got infected. Now it's springtime. Allergies and beautiful day in southern Arizona. Have a look-see. It's just beautiful. Here in about 2 weeks, it's going to be so hot I won't be able to get out here. If you're new here, glad you made it. We love you. And YouTube saved my life. Can save yours too. Till next time, guys. We love you.